What if events went differently in Star Wars Revenge of the Sith? What if Anakin didn't kill Count Dooku? How would the Star Wars timeline unfold if this small but significant change happened? It only takes one small event to ripple across the galaxy, fast, changing every outcome. Welcome back, my fellow watchers, as I dive deep into this question. I've always loved this idea of where Count Dooku would live after the Invisible Hand. Seeing how one choice could have made this happen, I decided I would take a look back and continue making Star Wars What If content. If you haven't already subscribed, do make sure you do with your notifications on, and let me know what other stories you think I could cover in the Star Wars world. What if I didn't get hacked last October? What if I had a VPN service? And what if I had Surfshark? What if you tried to use public Wi-Fi? I bet you have. If you're watching this video and you are, stop there, my fellow watchers, and download Surfshark immediately. What's Surfshark, you may ask, my fellow watchers? Surfshark is a VPN tool or a virtual private network, encrypting all of your data set via the internet so nobody can see your accounts, steal your accounts, your passwords, your videos, view your private messages, or even what you're doing online. Did you know that Surfshark offers one account that can be used on an unlimited number of devices? It's available on PlayStation, Mac, Apple TV, and the list goes on. You probably have assumed that public Wi-Fi is always 100% safe, but from experience, I can tell you that it isn't. I've been hacked before, and I've had this issue in the past. It's just like a bank vault, waiting for the hackers to break in, but not if you're using Surfshark. Surfshark isn't just good for encrypting your data. Have you ever ran out of things to watch on Netflix and can't seem to access certain shows or movies in the catalog? Watch this, my fellow watchers. I want to watch a Marvel movie, and some of the Marvel movies are not on the Canadian Netflix, but I have a Canadian account. With Surfshark, all I need to do is change my location to the USA, and boom, I search for the film again. Just like that, I can choose from watching one of the original Spider-Man movies that isn't on the Canadian Netflix. So to start surfing on the web like a pro in the sea of the internet, you need to click the link in the description below. And I have a QR code. Use my code MISSED right off the bat. You get a 83% discount, 3 months for free, 30-day money-back guarantee. There is no risk involved, so what are you waiting for? Again, I want to give a big shout out to Surfshark for sponsoring this video. Steam pranced across the burning flesh of Count Dooku's arms, the two limbs that were once his hands dropping to the ground. With an ear-shattering thud, Dooku's face contorted with a strike of agony, then wrath. The Skywalker before him held Dooku's Carmine blade along with his Crine one. The sabers mixed together as he lowered them to cover the sides of Dooku's throat. Count Dooku kept his eyes steady. Despite the ache striking his veins, his other senses were at their peak. The gray palette of the giant arena matched the emotions swirling inside of him. The adrenaline inside of him masked the pain of his missing hands. His eyes dilated, the smoke swirling in the vicinity, causing goosebumps to form on his finger. The Chancellor was bound to a chair that curved at the top, the glowing aqua of the binds illuminating against the glass behind him. A battle was outside, taking place in the vastness of space. It smelt like ash, but at the same time, it seemed empty. A smell of void of any substance. It was like the blaster fire sounding off in the distance, mere background noise. "Good, Anakin, good," the Chancellor said, his voice dragging out each syllable. Kill him now." Dooku's face twisted over the make eye contact with the Sith Lord in disguise, his lips curling upwards as his heart skyrocketed to his throat. The cloak that draped over him increased his body heat, the chain in the middle bouncing off of his chest from the sudden movement. That was when he swallowed what was left in his mouth, his throat burning because of it. By the time he brought his head back to Anakin, the colors of the lightsabers had mixed. They were no longer the shades of the Jedi and the Sith. They were combined. They became one. "I shouldn't," Anakin replied. But the strain in his tongue had Dooku shuddering in his spot. He hit it at his best, and he couldn't. His eyes darting around the room for an object to use. Without his hands, he had nothing. No way to use a weapon. He was out of options. Or was he? Before the Chancellor could move his mouth, Dooku sat up higher on his knees. The sudden shift in position brought young Skywalker's attention to him, and in that moment, the lightsabers disappeared from Dooku's mind. It was simply the two of them, and the will to survive overpowered all of his thoughts. "It's him," Dooku said, his voice a hush, almost like a whisper. "Your Republic is under the control of a Sith Lord. Who do you think that is?" Anakin stalled. It was his turn for his eyes to expand. Dooku felt the sudden spike of blood inside the Chancellor's heart. It left as soon as it came. Dooku knew the disguised Sith would control his emotions. Despite that, he did what he hadn't done in years. He hoped that Anakin felt the same spike Dooku did. He hoped Anakin would believe the word of a fallen man. Perhaps Dooku had been misguided the entire time. After all, he too was a pawn in Sidious's plan. "You're trying to survive," Anakin said. The words were weak as they passed his parted lips. "Search him." At Anakin's perplexed expression, the Count leaned his head back, as if that would get the blades to stop their assault. "If I'm truly lying, then search him. See if he has a lightsaber." That was what caused the Chancellor's face to drop. The walls he put dissipated, and that was when Anakin's skin turned pale. The Count had never seen before. At that time, the swords sizzled away, falling back and hitting their hilts. Anakin shouted over the man tied to the chair. Dooku knew those restraints wouldn't hold him. This whole time it was a ploy, and Dooku wasn't a part of it. He never was. The universe's fate had shifted. What was once supposed to be a flawless step in Palpatine's plan turned into a radical change. He had to handle it before it got out of hand. That was what occurred. The blinds flew off, one of them hitting Dooku's chest. The force of the object sent him to the ground. He went to put a hand on the new wound, but the phantom that made up the remainder of his arm flew by swatting at dead air. There was shouts, screams, and maybe they were battle cries. All Dooku knew was that his connection with the Force was blurred. The hit he endured dulled the world around him. The ash smell left his body, as did the pain. That was what concerned him the most. Even his vision was skewed by the light black dots littering the corners of his eyesight, blocking his view of the battlefield. One instinct, he went for his lightsaber, but his limbs plopped to the ground with no sense of direction. His injuries were still dancing with smoke, the floor beneath his cold and cooling his warm body. However, his skin warmed up. The second his world came back, he heard the swords clashing together. The screams were indeed battle cries, and the static noise coming from the sabers banging together clogged his eardrums. His head whipped up in time to see Anakin getting pushed to the wall. He fell by his master's side, both of them too weak to continue the fight. The Chancellor was no longer the man who was the helpless man in the chair. He was Darth Sidious, the scarlet glowing from the golden tip of the lightsaber hilt, glancing on Dooku's face. That was when he realized it was over. Dooku got to his knees and glared death in the eyes. The Reaper came for him in the form of his master, the plasma coming near Dooku's fading hair. And then, the end came. After the death of Count Dooku, Darth Sidious took care of the two Jedi who attempted to stop him. Although it pained him to lose all his progress with Anakin Skywalker, he prided himself on having backup plans. He had a choice. Either he could escape and spin a story about how two Jedi sacrificed themselves for him, or he could enact his plan sooner than anticipated. Seeing how he was arousing more suspicion by the minute, he had to act first. That clone trooper, Fives, came inches away from exposing the chips. Now it was Count Dooku. He couldn't risk the Jedi figuring it out. His largest advantage was stealth after all. That was what he did. He departed the ship, finding an escape pod and fleeing the scene. As he transferred across the dark skies that made up the stars, he covered his face as best he could with the robes he was donning. They were lighter than he hoped, more burgundy rather than black, but he made do with what he had. After he decided to activate Order 66 early, the transmission went out to each clone trooper in range, and Darth Sidious made sure that the commanders spread the message, and with that, the Jedi fell overnight. The Jedi Temple went from the building that represented the finest the galaxy had to the remnants of a broken empire. It took several days for the order to finish. There were several Jedi who attempted to get away. Darth Sidious knew that there would be some left. It made sense. They were skilled warriors, flawed beyond comprehension. Sidious was happy to see them gone, and he was more than happy to take their role. The galaxy had become a new place, but it almost didn't work. Darth Tyrannus spoiled the plans and caused Anakin to slip out of Sidious's grasp. The old fool still had a few tricks. Sidious would give him that. Although it was no matter, despite the setback and despite Sidious no longer having an apprentice, he had a plan to begin a fresh era. There was one man who Sidious would turn to. It was a risky play, but indeed an apprentice. He needed a goon to dispatch on the Jedi hunts, a goon who believed they were more powerful than they were. That led him to the most power-hungry of all of them, the one who he believed he could track with enough patience, time, and effort. Darth Maul. And that would be, what if Anakin Skywalker didn't kill Count Dooku on the Invisible Hand? Do you think Darth Sidious's plan would still have happened, or do you think Darth Sidious would have had to result in killing all of them? That will be this Star Wars What If. If you guys did enjoy this video, do make sure to subscribe, like, share, and turn your notifications on so you and your friends are all up to date with latest content. What other Star Wars What Ifs would you like to see? Let me know, and that being said, thanks for tuning in and have a fantastic day.